Well, good afternoon, everyone. I have got an amazing guest for you this afternoon. I have been wanting to interview him for probably 2 years now. He's been on my radar. He is a plant-based gastroenterologist. He is considered an expert in gut health. Actually, he is known as the Gut MD, Dr. Will B. And today he's going to talk about COVID-19 and how it actually relates to our digestion, how it can present, and things we can do to protect ourselves. So welcome, Dr. Will B.
Chef AJ, it's such a pleasure to be on your show. And, I have to tell you that I'm very jealous of your wonderful hair.
Are you
And
kidding
I want to
me?
know what's the secret, like because everyone else, I have COVID hair, like I have a
Yeah,
helmet up top.
yeah.
That's all thanks to COVID-19. How
Well,
do you do it?
I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but the secret is I broke what they call quarantine, sheltering at home, and I had my girl come and give me a haircut. I was looking so terrible, and I felt that this wasn't what they call the work, that when you have the business, the
Yeah.
businesses that have to run. The businesses of necessity, but the secret is the product. And after we get off, I'm going to get your address. I'm going to mail you the product. That really is the
Oh my gosh, that sounds wonderful.
Absolutely. It is such an honor to meet you. I know you have a book coming out pretty soon, which hopefully we can talk about, but you know what's on everybody's mind, which is COVID-19. And I love that you're going to approach this as the perspective of not just a medical doctor, but specifically one that specializes in gut health.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I wear a lot of different hats. So I'm a gastroenterologist. That's what I do for a living. I have a practice in Charleston, South Carolina. Many people know me from my Instagram account, the Gut Health MD, and some people know me about my upcoming book called Fiber Fueled. But I'm a gastroenterologist. This is what I do for a living. But a couple of years ago, I considered myself to be an epidemiologist. So I actually studied at the University of North Carolina School of Public Health, which is tied with Harvard as the #2 school of public health in the country. So it's an interesting time for me. And let me say that, there's nothing that I like about COVID-19. I'm trying to be as optimistic as I can be, but I don't like this virus. But I'll tell you what I do like. I do like using science and using my epidemiology background to identify what the flaws or weaknesses of the virus are, and to identify what the strengths of us, the humanity, where the strengths are. And when you identify the weaknesses and you play to your strengths, then basically what you're doing is you're building up your defense to make yourself as strong as you possibly can against this virus. So I'm excited to talk about this virus in more detail. I'm excited to talk about how it relates to gut health as well. But just know that, yes, I'm a gastroenterologist. I also am an epidemiologist and have this background, unique background.
Well, everybody's thinking respiratory and ventilators. I don't think people are even thinking about gut health at this time. And a lot of times,
And Chef AJ, it has to do actually with the structure of the virus itself. So now perhaps this has been discussed already with your community, but just in case, let me explain the virus and the way that it's structured itself, which is that it's an RNA virus. So it's conceptually similar to DNA. It's like if you took a DNA chain and you broke it in half, that's what you would have, this RNA. But it has this unique thing on the surface called a spike protein. And the spike protein allows it to basically adhere. I don't know if the bird is here or at your place. What do you think? Can you hear that?
it's at your place because you.
Oh, man. Well, I do live in Charleston, South Carolina, and it's a beautiful place. So we have the wilderness right outside our windows. The virus has this thing called a spike protein. The spike protein is something that basically allows the virus to adhere to these receptors that are called ACE receptors. ACE receptors are most densely found in the lungs. In fact, if you're a smoker, you actually are increasing the number of ACE receptors, which is one of the many reasons that smoking is a really bad idea right now in the midst of this COVID-19 crisis. So, but it can attach to the lungs using these ACE2 receptors. The number 2 location for ACE2 receptors in the entire body is actually your gut. And that's part of the reason why we have discovered that this virus, the SARS-CoV-2 virus, the coronavirus, can infect your gut because it's capable of actually attaching itself to these ACE receptors that you will find throughout your digestive system.
That's incredible. This is not something I've heard before that a lot of people are even talking about right now.
Well, I think it's something to be aware of, because one of the things I really want to get across to people is that the most powerful way to protect ourselves that we have right now, just this may already be completely clear given everything that's happening in our country, but the most powerful way that we have to protect ourselves is to physically separate. And that's because this virus is transmitted, we think, mostly through respiration, not just a cough, but like literally, Chef AJ, if you and I were hanging out and we go in and give each other a hug, and one of us has the virus, we could transmit the virus to the other person just literally by breathing on each other. All right. So the most powerful thing that we have is physical separation. But you need to actually initiate the physical separation either before you get the virus, or if you actually have the virus and you physically separate, then you will not transmit it to anyone else. And that is why it's an incredibly powerful technique. What I want people to know is that this virus, part of what makes it very nasty from my perspective, is that it's like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible, where he rips off the mask. He's got like this fake mask where you think it's someone else, and then he rips off the mask and it's Tom Cruise, and it's like, haha, I gotcha, right? COVID-19 wears many masks. COVID-19 wears many masks. And one of the ways that COVID-19 can present is not the classic fever and cough. One of the ways that COVID-19 can present is with digestive issues. Diarrhea can be incredibly common.
That's so fascinating, because Catherine just said, are the ACE receptors in the gut the reason some people are presenting with diarrhea?
The diarrhea can be the first sign. Loss of appetite. In the medical world, we call that anorexia, and we don't mean anorexia in terms of an eating disorder. What we mean is you just lose the desire to eat food. You effectively are rejecting food. Loss of appetite is one of the most common symptoms of this virus. Diarrhea can be the first thing that shows up. Nausea and vomiting, abdominal pain, not quite as common as diarrhea, but again, they could be the very first thing that shows up. So you may think you have a stomach bug. You may think that you have a stomach bug when in fact you have the SARS-CoV-2 virus. And it may be 2, 3, 4 days later that you develop a fever or some of the other symptoms. And the critical piece is, were you conscious of the possibility? Were you conscious of the possibility that when you develop that diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, loss of appetite, abdominal pain, that this could be the SARS-CoV-2 virus? Because if you were conscious of that possibility, then you would know you got to behave like you have the virus. And if you behave that way, then you will not transmit it to other people, and you will be saving lives. You will literally be saving lives.
Are you actually seeing any patients with this? Because at least where I live, there's no doctor appointments. You either stay at home or you go to the emergency room, basically.
All right. So 2 weeks ago, in the 36-year history of this GI practice, which of course I'm not, I wish I could say I'm 60 years old and I look this young. In the 36-year history of our GI practice, we had never seen a single telemedicine consult. And now we are 100% telemedicine. We've had to completely change our business model. And I have to tell you that medical practices across the country are hurting really, really hard right now. And we hope that this is over. But I will tell you, as much as I am hurting financially from this crisis, I wholeheartedly believe, based on everything that I know, that we are doing the right thing and making the right choices, because we are saving lives. And we need to value life over the economics as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you for saying that, especially as a young person. I appreciate that. If you joined us late, this is Dr. Will B., the Gut MD. He's a plant-based gastroenterologist and a world-renowned expert on gut health. And he's talking about COVID and some of the little or lesser known side effects that people are having, actually presenting with GI symptoms that many of us didn't even know about until today. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. And one of the things that's interesting, Chef AJ, is that they have also discovered that you can detect the virus in a person's stool. Because it goes back to, we said that the virus is capable using this spike protein of adhering to these ACE2 receptors that are in your GI system. And what that means is if it gets into your GI system, it can then replicate, it can cause these symptoms that we're talking about. and then it can start to basically transfer from the stool. Now, we don't have clear-cut proof of what we call fecal oral transmission, which basically means that because it's in the stool, it could get on someone's hands, contaminate, and then contaminate other places. And if I touch my face, could potentially get into my mouth and my nose and then transmit into my lungs, okay? We don't have clear-cut evidence, but there is enough evidence, there's enough writing on the wall that there is active virus in the GI system that we are concerned that it's possible that it could be transmitted this way as well. And that's one of the reasons why we have shut down our endoscopy unit almost completely. So I have traditionally spent more than 50% of my time doing upper endoscopy and colonoscopy on my patients. And right now that is, I haven't done it in 2 weeks. Normally I do like 25 to 35 a week. I haven't done it in 2 weeks. And that's because of this concern of transmission through the digestive system.
That, again, something I didn't know. I think about like patients in a nursing home where there sometimes is contact with stool. That could be really important.
It absolutely could be. And this is where we come back to. So our two strategies for protecting ourselves from actually transmitting the virus. I hear a lot of people, particularly in the beginning 2 weeks ago, I heard a lot of people talking about, oh, well, like shoot your hair dryer into your mouth, or like, take this supplement, or, and all these things about it. And that's how it's going to protect you from actually getting the virus. There's no evidence of that. There's two ways that you can actually protect yourself from getting the virus. One is physical distancing. All right. If you stay at home and you literally never come into contact with a person who has this virus, then it is very hard for you to actually get this virus. Because the only other way that you would get this virus is to touch a surface where the virus exists. And this is why hand washing comes into play and becomes very important. Okay, because again, those are the two ways. Either you come into contact with the person, or you come into physical contact with a surface. And if you wash your hands and get it off your hands, then you will be successful in protecting yourself from that threat as well. The way that you have to wash your hands to be successful is 20 seconds of soap and water. So if you do happy birthday in your mind, and you don't like do it like the chipmunks and do it too fast, if you do it at a normal speed, then that would be 20 seconds. Okay. You can also use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. We think that soap and water is the best, but you can use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. It has to be at least 60% alcohol. So like the vodka that you got in your cabinet is not strong enough, believe it or not. It has to be 60% alcohol or 70% isopropanol in order to get it off your hands.
That's incredible. People are saying that they didn't know how much the gut played a role in this, and they're thanking you so much for this crucial information. People are worried about going to the grocery store and the food and the virus living on the food. Should we be worried? Should we be buying fresh over frozen? Is there any other measures you think we should take?
Okay, so I think that we need to be real about the threat. And what I mean by that is the right level of response, not to the point of hysteria. Okay, not to the point of seeing things that don't exist, but at the same time protecting ourselves and playing it safe, right? So when it comes to food, there is to date no evidence. And by the way, this may change. I mean, this totally may change. But where we stand right now, there is no evidence of transmission by food. All right. So I understand wanting to like protect yourself. If you cook your food, I consider that protecting yourself. But I'll tell you this right now. I'm a plant-based doctor. I eat a 100% plant-based diet, and I am not like scrubbing my salad, with soap and water to get like the hypothetical virus off. Again, there is no evidence of transmission through the food supply. The flip side is this: a supermarket is a very public place. Most supermarkets, I would assume, have had people who have SARS-CoV-2 walking through. Okay. You can't be sure that it's not on the boxes, the packaging. And they did an interesting study, Chef AJ, that got published in the New England Journal of Medicine about 10 days ago. And they saw how long the virus lasts in different places. So number one, in the air, someone like coughs and aerosolizes the virus, it exists for 3 hours in the air. It'll still be hanging out there for a while. If it gets on the cardboard, it'll last on cardboard for 24 hours. If it gets on stainless steel, it will last for 48 hours. And if it gets on plastic, it will last for 72 hours. So how can we be smart about our grocery shopping and protecting ourselves? If you pick up food, I would encourage you, if you can get access to gloves, I would wear gloves, okay, when you are at the supermarket, and I would wear a different pair of gloves when you unpack your bags when you get home, all right? The other thing to be aware of is, again, 24 hours for cardboard. What does that mean? If it comes in a cardboard packaging, put it away and don't touch it for 24 hours. Number two, it's 48 hours on stainless steel. So if it comes in a can, put it away for 48 hours and don't touch it, and then you can pull it out. Now, the other option is to wipe everything down with alcohol swabs when you get home, okay? And you could do that. And then that allows you to basically touch it immediately if you want to. But instead, what I would do is like quarantine your food. Quarantine your food, like be aware of what food you just bought. And again, if it's cardboard packaging, once you get past 24 hours, you're good. If it's canned, once you get past 2 days, totally good.
What about fresh food? Like if we're buying fresh kale or potatoes, rubbing alcohol, just washing?
So, you know, again, like they didn't formally study that. They didn't formally study that. What I would personally do is I would look the food that you just bought that's fresh. I would look to actually cook it. If you cook it, then from my perspective, you're safe. But if you get 1 to 2 days beyond the day that you went to the grocery store and you got this refrigerator full of food, from my perspective, the expectation is that there is no virus at that point. So again, there is no evidence of transmission by the food supply. If that changes, then we're going to let people know immediately, and we're going to have to change how we do things. But as where we currently stand, there's no evidence of that.
Are you recommending any additional? I know that all plant-based doctors recommend that if a person is plant-based to take B12, but are you recommending any additional supplements during this time that would either help us with preventing this virus or just improving our gut health in general?
All right. I thank you for asking me this because I like this topic, okay? Because I think that it opens up a conversation that is really critically important. So I said, you know, earlier on, you have two strategies to protect yourself from actually getting the virus. One is physical distancing. The second is washing your hands. All right. That's in terms of getting the virus. Now, it's a different conversation that you and I are moving into right now, which is what do you do if you get the virus, or how do you fortify your body to optimize your immune system? And I think what I see that is misinformation when it comes to immunity or to the immune system that I want to make clear to people is it is not about more. It is not about bigger. It's about precision, targeted. It's about getting exactly what you need and not too much, okay? And so that is the critical play when it comes to the immune system. Let me give you an example, and then I'll talk about the supplements if that's okay. But I want to start here first, because I really think at the end of the day, when we talk about supplements, I understand that people feel this desire to change up their supplement routine, and I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm doing. But I also think we need to understand that you can't take a C- immune system and turn it into an A+ with supplements. All right. If you want to turn your C- immune system into an A+, you got to be prepared to optimize your diet. You got to be prepared to get a good night's rest. You got to be prepared to exercise, to do the other lifestyle measures that are critically important. Actually, Chef AJ, I really think that managing your stress becomes important during these times, right? If you're not sleeping and you're constantly stressed out, that's bad for your immune system. So I do think all of those things come into play. I want to focus for a moment on fiber, because this is the piece, and this is what I talk about. You know, my book, Fiber Fueled, it's interesting because it's a gut health book.
May I show the book? I'm so honored to have an advanced copy. It's worth it just for chapter 5, I promise you. And when it comes out, we'll do another interview just based on the book.
So, and chapter 5 is what to do when you have a sensitive gut. That's what chapter 5 is all about. What to do if you have a sensitive gut. But the whole book is really the playbook for gut health. And the beautiful thing is, I am not coming to this conversation from the perspective of being vegan. I'm coming to this from the perspective of being a scientist. The science says this is the path to better gut health. And the key is that gut health is connected to your immune system. 70 to 80% of your immune system lives in your gut. Let me paint a picture for everyone for just a moment. Imagine that you zoom in with a microscope and you're looking at just like on a cellular level, what's happening inside of your intestines, okay? And here's what you're gonna see. There is this single layer of cells called the epithelial layer. It's a fraction of the size of one hair off of my head. This single layer of cells is the lining of your gut. And on one side is 70 to 80% of the immune system. And on the other side of this single layer of cells is 39 trillion microbes. The majority of the microbiome of your entire body is right there. They are in constant communication. You cannot separate the two. If you want a healthy immune system, focus on your gut health. That's the honest truth. If you want a healthy immune system, focus on your gut health. And so it brings me to fiber, because the foundation of a healthy gut is fiber. It's the critical piece. And I'm not talking about, supplements. I'm talking about your diet. I'm talking about eating a plant-based diet. And they did this study that I find to be fascinating. It's in mice. You can't do this in humans because it would be unethical to do this. They took mice and they infected them with influenza. And they fed them one of two diets, low fiber or high fiber. Those are the two diets. And they wanted to see what would happen. They predicted that the high fiber diet would actually be worse for the mouse, because as much as we all love fiber, fiber is anti-inflammatory. So that means it cools off the immune system. They thought that if you have a virus, you don't need less immune system, you need more. It turned out they were wrong. The scientists were wrong. When they did the study, the high fiber diet consuming mice lived longer, had less symptoms, and when they objectively measured their lung function from this respiratory virus, they had better lung function. So the scientists went back to the drawing board and they said, well, what is it about the fiber? What is it? And this is what they found. And Chef AJ, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about, because this is chapter 3 of my book, which is that fiber feeds the microbes. The microbes turn the fiber into short chain fatty acids like butyrate, acetate, propionate. Short chain fatty acids are very well documented to improve the immune system. And in this particular setting, they were actually going to the lung, leaving the gut and going to the lung and recruiting what are called CD8 cells. And the CD8 cells are exactly the cells that you want fighting the virus. What that means is that the fiber, by producing short chain fatty acids, was getting the right soldiers, exactly the soldiers that you want on the battlefield to fight this virus. But the second part of this equation that's key, when I say optimized and not more, when I say precise, when I say just enough but not too much, what I mean is that if our immune system is overactive, we get something that's called cytokine storm. And cytokine storm sounds really cool, but it's not. It's not cool. Because this is where a person's lungs, basically due to the immune system, not the virus itself, start to fill up with water. And the only way that person can survive is with a respirator. And it can take 10 or 14 days for that person to come off of the respirator, sometimes more. This is what you see happening with this virus, the cytokine storm. And the key in this study is that the short chain fatty acid took the rest of the immune system and cooled it off, which is exactly what you want. So my point is that right now, if you want to optimize your protection, your defense against this virus, to me, the play is optimize your gut health through your diet and your lifestyle. And that is effectively what I discuss in the book. But supplements play a role too. Supplements play a role too, and they're important. And I have changed my supplement routine. So I'll tell you guys exactly what I'm doing. I have turned up my vitamin D. All right, I'm currently taking 7,000 units a day. I think 5,000 to 7,000 units is where I would typically suggest that people go. Okay, and obviously I'm not giving medical advice. You have to talk to your doctor about these things. But this is what I currently am doing for myself. I also am taking a zinc supplement, and I also am taking resveratrol. I think that you can make an argument for vitamin C. I feel like I got enough with my vitamin D, with my zinc, with my resveratrol, and most importantly, with my fiber-rich diverse, abundant plant-based diet.
That's great. You know, I love what you said about the foundation of a healthy gut is fiber, and I agree with you. So how do people that follow the carnivore diet or the keto diet, how how do they have a healthy gut?
They don't. I mean, they don't. So, what you see is short-term gain and long-term pain. And what I mean by short-term gain is that people may lose weight when they do these diets. They may see artificially that their hemoglobin A1C, if they have diabetes, goes down and improves. But what I want them to understand, what I want people to understand is you are not actually more insulin sensitive. You're not actually reversing the disease, which is insulin resistance, which is type 2 diabetes. What you are doing is you are effectively removing the carbohydrate entirely. And by doing that, you're faking it. And that's to make an analogy so that people can understand, because it's a little bit complicated from a medical perspective, but let me just kind of make an analogy. If I hurt my knee, all right, let's say I tear my ACL, right? I have two choices. I can either go get the knee fixed and then rehab it, fully recognizing that there will be some pain and it will require patience for me to rehab my knee, all right? Or alternatively, I can make the choice to never walk again. And if I make the choice to never walk again, guess what? I won't feel any pain in my knee. But you know what happens to the rest of my body? It falls apart. I get weaker. My musculature breaks down. I gain weight. My blood pressure goes up. I put myself at risk for diabetes, for heart disease, right? So it is not a healthy trade-off in the long term to make that choice. In the same way, the person who essentially cuts carbs, goes keto, goes carnivore diet, you are compromising the long-term health of your gut. I can make you no guarantee that you will get that back. All right. You are compromising the long-term health of your gut. You are clearly putting yourself at risk for heart disease and other vascular disease. You are clearly also putting yourself at risk for increased risk of cancer. So now those types of things don't show up in the first 3 months or 6 months. Those are the things that show up when you do this over the course of time. But what I will tell you is that the damage that you do to your gut during those 3 months, 6 months, 12 months is going to be very hard to reverse.
Wow. I always think about people that come to me for help with weight loss and they've had gastric bypass and then they've gained their weight back. How is their microbiome and gut health affected by having had that operation?
They have clear-cut studies looking at the gut microbiome of people who have gastric bypass, and it's quite fascinating because it changes very quickly in the beginning towards something that is actually protective. And then over the course of time, those things can start to break down and you drift back to what you were before. And what I find to be, interesting, like I by no means, so I feel for people who struggle with their weight. Okay, I really do. To pretend that there's this simple solution. If it was so simple, wouldn't we all do it? Right? But I do truly believe that the path to weight control is through a plant-based diet. And the reason why is because when you eat whole food plant-based diet, you can eat in abundance, you can eat without restriction. And if it is a whole food plant-based no oil diet, your body will automatically tell you when you're full. And that's because of the fiber. And so the fiber basically triggers the hormones in your body that tell you, hey, whoa, you've had enough, right? The alternative is like high calorie, like oil, high calorie with animal products. Both of these have zero fiber, okay? Or processed food where the fiber has been removed and effectively what you have is sugar. And so these things, it's so easy for people to overweight. They have studies that prove that people overeat when you're eating that particular diet. In the American diet, 97% of us don't even get the minimal amount of fiber.
Fiber, I love fiber. I can't wait for you to be a guest next year on the Truth About Weight Loss Summit and really just the whole hour, just talk about fiber. Because
I could, I love it.
It's the key. It really is the key. It's the key to satiety. It's the key to weight loss. It's the key to so many things.
Well, and when we say that it's the key to so many things, the reason why it's the key to so many things is that it affects our microbiome. And because our microbiome plays a central role in digestion, in metabolism, including our weight, including diabetes, the gut microbiome plays a central role in our immune system, in our hormonal balance, in our cognition, our mood, and even honestly, the way that we express our own genes, which is crazy. And so it's so powerful. And when people say all health starts in the gut, like legitimate scientists now truly believe that that is the case.
I mean, just to think, I'm 60, but 30 years ago, I never even heard the word microbiome. Even probably 10 years ago, I don't think I had heard it.
Well, you know why? Because like even when I was in medical school, even when I had made the decision to become a gastroenterologist, there really were very few studies. And the reason why is if you went back to 15 years ago, we didn't have the laboratory technology to even study these microbes. And it was around 2006 that we developed this way to start to study the microbes. And it's ever since 2006 that the explosion of information has occurred. And it's really just, it keeps escalating. And I'm going to tell you right now, I honestly believe a couple things. Number one, this is not a fad. The gut microbiome is not a fad. This is here to stay. And I think it's going to redefine the way that we think about health and disease. And number two, I'm going to tell you right now that I honestly believe, getting back to COVID-19 for a moment, I honestly believe that we're going to see a study that comes out sometime in the next couple of months that's going to tell us that our gut microbiome plays a critical role in the way that we respond and react to COVID-19. And the reason why I say that is that there are some people, and we don't know why this is yet, there are some people who get COVID-19 and have almost no symptoms. But there are also some people who get COVID-19 and have a catastrophic, life-threatening experience. And we don't know what makes it in those people, like why so radically different. And I honestly think what we're going to find is it's the gut microbiome and the immune system, which again are completely intertwined. That to me is I think going to play a critical role.
Have any plant-based eaters that you know have gotten this yet? I mean, I don't, obviously I don't know everyone in the plant-based movement, but I haven't heard of any of us getting it yet.
I don't know anyone who has actually contracted the virus. Now, let me say, like, I am, as you know, a huge believer in a plant-based diet. I don't think that the plant-based diet stops you from actually getting the virus. And the plant-based diet, as much as I believe in it, okay, it's not a cure-all where literally all disease on the entire planet would be reversed to the point of non-existence if everyone ate a completely plant-based diet. That's not the case. But what it would be is it would be such a dramatic improvement over what we're currently doing that you really would be you would truly be optimizing the human body, and you would really be reducing disease. And so when it comes to COVID-19 specifically, I wholeheartedly believe that the best diet to protect yourself from COVID-19 is a plant-based diet that is abundant and diverse with variety of plants. I really truly believe that that is the best diet to protect yourself. There is no sure thing, but that is the best.
Great. Don't want to embarrass you, Dr. Will, but we have a comment that you have the most beautiful teeth and smile.
Oh, I love that.
So
That's probably my wife. That was probably my wife. Thanks, babe.
Oh, if you don't mind, I'll go through a few of the questions. When you talked about the supplements that you were choosing to take, even though you were not giving medical advice, people asked what dosages were you taking of those three items?
Yeah, so right now I'm taking a lower dose of zinc. You can take anywhere 50 to 100 milligrams. If you like, if I became infected where I thought I was sick, I would increase the dose. Right now I'm taking about 15 of the zinc. The resveratrol, I don't remember off the top of my head. I mean, if you follow what's on the bottle, then that would be the appropriate dose based upon the supplement. But again, the vitamin D, I'm doing 7,000 units a day right now.
Nice. Janice wanted to know when your book comes out. It comes out, I believe it's May 12th, definitely next month. And there is not an Audible version yet. I had asked them that right before we went live because I too prefer to listen. So you will have to read it, but please get it anyway. And the Audible version will come eventually.
Yeah.
So, yeah. You talked about immunity, and one of the things, I'm listening to as much as I can without being it my only thing that I'm listening to, these webinars on COVID. But one of the doctors this morning said that exercise is of course important in general, but even more important that we actually sweat. And, that for immunity against, cancer, COVID, things like that. Does exercise at all have anything to do with gut health, or is that just a separate issue?
Actually, exercise has a lot to do with gut health. So, let's start with this foundational principle that I want us all to agree to, because I really believe this is the truth. Gut health is immune health, okay? So let's just use that interchangeably. The immune system is so dependent on the gut that if I'm telling you that it's good for your gut, it's also good for your immune system. And in the studies looking at gut health and exercise, it's quite fascinating. So what I just told you a few moments ago, Chef AJ, is that in that study looking at influenza, which by the way, there's a similar study with RSV, another respiratory virus. In that study, it was the short chain fatty acids that optimized the immune system and protected from the virus, okay? What does exercise do to the gut? The exercise changes your gut in a way that results in more production of short chain fatty acids. When you exercise, your body rewards you. The currency of the reward is that you will get even more production of short chain fatty acids from your diet. It's not a one-to-one exchange. When you eat a high fiber diet, when you eat a lot of fruits, vegetables, whole grain, seeds, and nuts, you're going to get short chain fatty acids, but you can get even more and amplify with exercise. The other thing that's quite fascinating is that I don't know if anyone's ever done P90X. I did P90X a few years ago, and Tony Horton who's the trainer, talks a lot about muscle confusion. And what he teaches is that you should do many different types of exercises, right? And we know that that's true. If you only lift weights, to me, you would get better results if you also did some cardio. And if you only run, to me, you would get better results if you sprinkle in some other types of cardio and then also sprinkle in some weights, right? So I think the key with exercise is diversity, many different types. Now, here's what's cool, Chef AJ. They are trying to figure out how to bottle this up and turn it into a probiotic pill. They haven't figured this out yet. But what they found is that in distance runners, there was a change in the microbiome with one particular bacteria that was really good at breaking down lactic acid. Lactic acid is what builds up in your muscles and causes muscle fatigue. If you're a distance runner and you can break down lactic acid, you would become more efficient at a distance runner. And we all know that in order to become an efficient distance runner, you have to build it up, right? You don't wake up and do a marathon, you train for a marathon and you ramp your way up towards the marathon. And so what's fascinating is that they showed this one particular bacteria in the gut plays a role in your ability to actually achieve that, that cardiovascular fitness and be able to do distances. So I think that's fascinating.
This is incredibly fascinating. Nadesh wants to know, is it better to eat mostly raw vegetables than steamed when it comes to gut health? And I'll definitely get the book when it comes out, she says. Thank you.
All right. So I actually talked to Robbie Barbaro from Mastering Diabetes about this exact issue, because this is one of the tips that you will find when you read the book, is that the answer is there is no better choice. The better choice is both. And here's why. The number one predictor of a healthy gut is the diversity of plants in your diet. The reason why that's the number one predictor of a healthy gut is that every type of plant has its own unique types of fiber, and that those different types of fiber will support all of these different populations of bacteria. The key with whether or not cooked or not cooked is better is that what we know is this for sure. They are not exactly the same in terms of the effects on the microbiome. So if you take collards and you eat them raw and then you steam your collards, those two things will have slightly different effects on your gut microbiome. So my point is this: do both. Do both. So if you cook your food, if you're going to cook your food, save at least a little bit to be raw and to nibble on. And that's the way that you optimize your gut and make it even stronger.
Nice. Well, this is such a perfect segue to the next question from Barbara about diversity. She says, is it okay to go healthfully through life without eating many of the cruciferous vegetables, beans, or legumes and still have good biodiversity and broad spectrum of required micronutrients?
So I think that my thing is this. I don't think that there is a one size fits all diet. Okay. But there are also 300,000 varieties of edible plants on this planet. And the way that we interpret a plant-based diet for every single one of us is going to be different. So I can assure you, Chef AJ, you and I, we both eat what's called a plant-based diet. And I can guarantee that it's not exactly the same for the two of us. We have our own way of implementing a plant-based diet. The one thing that I would really caution people against is categorical eliminations. I worry when you take an entire category of food where each category, whether it's legumes or whole grains or seeds and nuts, when you take the entire category and eliminate it entirely, you can't replace that because there is nothing that exists outside of the category that can give you exactly what's in there. So within the category, to me, it's not about having every single type that exists. It's about finding what works for your individual body. So let's take legumes, for example. Maybe you're not a kidney bean person. Maybe you're not a pinto bean person, but maybe you are a lentil person. And maybe you have to moderate those lentils a little bit, but that's okay. I just don't want you to completely and categorically eliminate them, because what we've seen, and I'll spare everyone the details, you will find all the details in my book in Fiber Fueled. You will see that when people do categorical eliminations, such as with the paleo diet, they suffer consequences. They may not realize it, but they do.
What consequences do they suffer?
So in a study out of Australia, specifically looking at the Paleolithic diet and the gut microbiome, what they found was quite fascinating. They were looking at TMAO. TMAO, many people in the plant-based world may already be aware of this. If you listen to, like, for example, Joel Kahn, he talks about this all the time, or Danielle Bellardo. TMAO is a marker for increased risk of heart disease, also an increased risk of developing stroke, vascular disease, chronic kidney disease, a number of things. The bottom line is it's bad. It's bad. And it's actually produced by the microbiome. Okay. It's produced by the microbiome in response to eating red meat, which contains carnitine. If you don't ever eat meat and you eat a completely plant-based diet, you will not have a microbiome capable of producing TMAO. So that's a beautiful thing. But people who are on the Paleolithic diet, they eat meat. And that puts them at risk for heart disease. But the question is, does the risk get affected by the fact that they eliminate whole grains in their entirety? And what they found in this study, Chef AJ, that it was quite fascinating, is they had 3 groups: a healthy general diet, it was not a plant-based diet, a just regular diet, okay? A mildly paleo diet, meaning they were following the principles, but they were not hardcore. Or the third category was hardcore paleo, like hardcore strict, no grains. And what they found is that the people in the hardcore paleo group, even though they were eating the same amount of red meat as the mild paleo group, the hardcore paleo group had the highest level of TMAO by far. And the question was, and again, remember, this is not going to happen in one day of dieting, but if you continue to subject yourself to a high level of TMAO, this is the person who gets heart disease in their 50s. Okay. And so they asked the question, well, why are they getting high levels of TMAO? It comes back to TMAO is produced by bacteria in your gut. Because they eliminated whole grains, they had a higher level of this particular bacteria called Hungatella. And they found that that was what was causing the high levels of TMAO. So the stricter that they were in eliminating whole grains from their diet, the higher they were in this Hungatella bacteria that was hurting them by producing TMAO. So the point being, in that study, the more hardcore paleo you were, the less healthy that you were.
What about people with true digestive issues? I meet so many vegans, plant-based eaters that just, they try and the legumes, they just can't do it, especially if they have IBS or SIBO. I mean, what do you do in a case like that?
I think that what we need to do is we need to find people, and by the way, you and I, because you alluded to chapter 5 of my book, Fiber Fueled, is all about finding your way when you have a sensitive gut. The person who has a sensitive gut, as you know very well, Chef AJ, is the person who has a damaged gut, right? It's not a person who has a fully strengthened gut microbiome. It's the person who's had a damaged microbiome that struggles with these foods and these food sensitivities. So when it comes to the legumes, if you eliminate them entirely and then you try to come back later, it's going to be even harder for you later on to bring them in. I'm not telling you to just suck it up. I'm not telling you to just bear through the pain. What I am telling you is that when you have a food sensitivity, if we're smart about the way that we introduce the legumes, meaning that we start with low FODMAP amounts of the legumes, and then we increase slowly with time, we should be able to get those legumes on board. And it's not that you will be able to have them without restriction, and it's not that you'll have every single type. But for example, as I alluded to before, lentils are a lot more gentle and easier for people to process. And that is a legume. It's not a bean, but it's a legume, and it's in the same category. And it's something that can be consumed as a starting point as you work towards potentially other options in the future. It may take time. It may take months to years, depending on the severity of the injury to your gut. But it's a process that you can go through and ultimately heal yourself.
Wow, but it does take time. Why is it that everybody seems to have gut issues now, whether it's IBS, SIBO? Is it just because we have more information and people are getting tested more, or is this actually increasing?
It's increasing. It's increasing. And what it is a couple of things. It is a fiber devoid diet. All right. There is a study that was done by a guy at Stanford. His name is Justin Sonnenberg, and he's actually endorsed my book. He wrote a great book himself called The Good Gut. And he's a researcher. And what he did is a study you cannot do in humans. But in mice, he looked at multiple generations of mice, so like bearing offspring. And he looked at the effects of a low fiber diet. We in America, by the way, are on a low fiber diet. The average American is getting 15 grams of fiber. It's nothing. And so he looked at the effects of a low fiber diet in these mice. And what he found is that it would compound over generations. So what that means is if grandma has 1,000 species, and by the way, more species is a marker of gut health. You want more species, more biodiversity. If grandma has 1,000 species, but is on a low fiber diet, then by the time she has mom, she might be at 700 species. And then by the time mom has you, she may be at 400 species. And now you're starting in a position of having 40% of the species that your grandma had when she was a kid. So it can compound over generations. And in that study, what Dr. Sonnenberg discovered is that if you reverse the low fiber diet and you reintroduce fiber, you can get the species back. But if you wait too long, there comes a point where if you wait too long, you could lose the species forever. So the point being, we have been on a low fiber diet for 2 generations now in the United States. And it's an issue that needs to be addressed in order to get that health back.
Do you remember Dr. Dennis Burkitt?
Yeah.
My favorite quote of his was, "If you pass small stools, you need large hospitals."
That is a great quote, and that is so true. And I honestly think that you can look at our poop like a vital sign. I really do.
So I don't want to give away too much about the book because you're going to come back. We're going to schedule another interview just about the book. But guys, buy it now. You can pre-order it on Amazon, Fiber Fueled. And then when it comes out in May, I'm going to interview Dr. Will again, and we can ask him more questions. But I want to give a bit of a spoiler alert, but I don't want you to answer this, Dr. Will B. There was something I learned in here that blew my mind, and is that you could actually have diarrhea and be constipated. And that was mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, that's true. And one thing on the book real quick, Chef AJ, if you don't mind, I've been talking to my publisher. Things are crazy with this virus. A lot of my plans for promoting the book have fallen through because of the virus. It is what it is. So life goes on. But what I want the people at home to know is that traditionally, I would say, go to Amazon and order it. But right now, Amazon is actually prioritizing certain goods and putting things like books lower on the list. And I want people who want this book to be able to get it on May 12th. If you want this book, I want you to be able to get it. like that day. And so I would actually recommend either going to Barnes and Noble, or if you want to support your local independent bookstore, which I'm a big believer in, then if you come to my website, theplantfedgut.com, and click on the link for book, there is the option for you to support your local independent bookstore. And they need that help right now, because I honestly don't know how they're going to get out of this. Like, it's because they can't have people walking through their doors.
Well, thank you. I apologize for saying that. I just wanted everybody to get your book, and that's the fastest way. So
no apology needed. No apology needed at all. I mean, I actually have been recommending Amazon for weeks on end now, I think, but this is actually a conversation I just had with my publisher yesterday, which is that this dynamic has changed dramatically. And so, you know, again, what traditionally we would do with Amazon, I actually want to make sure that people know that right now it actually appears better for them to use Barnes and Noble or support your local independent bookstore by ordering through them, which of course, like, you know, it's just, I feel for all these places, including the restaurants right now.
But bottom line, however you get the book, please get the book.
Exactly.
And I mean that sincerely.
That's all I care about at the end of the day. Right?
Because it is a terrific book, especially for those that have given up on the plant-based diet because of digestive problems. That's why this book is so important, because I hear that so many, oh, I tried plant-based, but I got gas and I got bloating. And so
I want to invite you back. I want to invite you back. This is, I really think that if you read this book, it will open your mind up to what is actually happening with your body. And if you understand what's happening with your body, then you'll know how to navigate the situation to get your health back.
Could you please give the best website for people to either follow you or get in touch with you, your Instagram? I mean, I'm going to put this in the description, but people are asking right now as well.
Sure. Yeah. So if you come to my website, it is theplantfedgut.com, theplantfedgut.com. And when you go there, you'll find a link to my social media. You'll find my email list. I have a new thing that I was working on today, Chef AJ, which is going to be a handout all about COVID-19. So I'll be posting that to my website very soon. And you'll find information about my book and links. If you want to follow me on Instagram, it is The Gut Health MD, TheGut Health MD. And you can find me under that same name on Facebook as well. And here's my cat.
Oh, nice. We love when pets make an appearance.
Yeah.
What's his name?
His name is Noli. Noli is our new cat. We had Wrigley up until this January, and Ms. Wrigley passed, and so we got Noli now, and he's a sweet little boy.
Oh, she's adorable. Got a couple more questions. Catherine wanted to know the effect that ibuprofen has on the microbiome, and Clara has any thoughts on apple cider vinegar to help with food digestion?
Sure. So specifically with ibuprofen first, the number one cause of ulcer disease in the United States is the use of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. They actually cause injury and tear up our intestine. And so the effect on the gut microbiome is not one that you would consider to be advantageous. I will also say that when it comes to COVID-19, since we're having a COVID-19 conversation tonight, when it comes to COVID-19, there are some concerns about the possibility, we're calling it a possibility at this point, that ibuprofen and other non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs can be problematic if you develop a fever. So the current guidance, what I would recommend to people is if you're on these drugs, let's pretend you have heart disease and you're on aspirin, don't stop your aspirin. That is not a good idea. Don't stop something that you've been taking already. But if you have a fever and you're worried it could be COVID-19, I would recommend Tylenol instead of taking ibuprofen to break the fever. The second question is ACV, apple cider vinegar. So I actually think, and first of all, when I talk about apple cider vinegar, I'm talking about apple cider vinegar with the mother, which basically means that it's not pasteurized. It still has the live active bacteria. Okay. So to me, apple cider vinegar is conceptually quite similar to kombucha. I do believe that there are benefits to the consumption of kombucha. I don't think that there is quite as much to it as the hype would lead you to believe. I think a lot of that is marketing. And I think that is also the truth with ACV. You can do ACV if you enjoy it on a consistent basis. I would not expect that to be the backbone of gut health. The backbone of gut health is going to be your diet. It's going to be fiber. So, but if you want to do the apple cider vinegar, a key from my perspective, don't destroy your teeth with the acidic vinegar. Dilute it with water and ideally sip through a straw so that it goes past your teeth. And then after you drink it, rinse your mouth out and make sure that you are protecting your teeth because it erodes the enamel.
That's great. Thank you. You know, you had mentioned that you're not doing procedures right now and that you do quite a few colonoscopies, and this may be controversial, so I apologize for asking if I'm putting you on the spot. But
Yeah.
in the plant-based community, there's things that are considered more controversial. Like a standard American doctor will tell you at a certain age, you have to get a mammogram, you have to get a colonoscopy, but some of the plant-based doctors are vehemently opposed to them. Where do you stand on colonoscopies? Should everybody be getting one after the age of 50, or only if you're at high risk or having symptoms, or what about the Cologuard instead?
So we deserve an honest conversation when it comes to this. Colon cancer is the #2 cause of cancer death in America. There's only one more deadly cancer. On a yearly basis, like for example, in 2020, we're expecting 140,000 cases of colon cancer. Most people who are listening to this call, if you're of a sufficient age, you probably know people who have had colon cancer. So we're talking about an extremely common condition. We're talking about an extremely deadly condition, right? Again, only lung cancer takes more lives than colon cancer. Colon cancer takes more lives than breast cancer. So the question is, what is the right way for us to address our public health problem? All right. And, let me just say before I dive into this, you can choose whatever you want. I'm going to present you with the facts. And I'm a plant-based gastroenterologist, and I'm telling you the truth. And I'm also going to tell you when I'm doing getting a colonoscopy for myself. So I'm putting my actions where my mouth is. So we think that we could prevent up to 90% of colon cancers if people actually did the appropriate screening. Colonoscopy, to me, is the superior test. I hear people tossing about the idea that colonoscopy causes more harm than good. Any choice that you make is about risk versus benefit. And so what we want is the maximum benefit and the least risk. In our practice, we do thousands of colonoscopies per year. We've had 0 perforations in the 4 years that I've been in my practice between all the doctors. 0 perforations. The risk of a colonoscopy in our practice is like 3 times a year, someone will have bleeding. That's it. And that's easily dealt with, and there's no harm done. So it's hard for me to buy into the idea that there's this huge risk, because I don't see that, and I'm the one actually doing it. And what is the benefit? Well, I see plenty of patients on a routine basis that I do a colonoscopy and either diagnose them with an earlier stage of colon cancer, or more importantly, I have tons of patients that I find an advanced polyp. A polyp is a growth on the lining of the colon that will turn into cancer. When it's an advanced polyp, what that means is it's on the verge of becoming cancer. And if you catch it at that stage, it's painlessly removed during a colonoscopy. Like, you don't need surgery. I just removed it. We're done. Your risk is gone. The threat is gone. This is why a colonoscopy, we think, can reduce the risk of colon cancer by 90%. But the problem is you can't wait until you have symptoms. People don't get symptoms with early cancer. People don't get symptoms with moderate cancer. People get symptoms when they have advanced late-stage cancer and you've missed your chance. You can't wait. So you have to identify thresholds where you're going to start. The traditional age in the United States has been age 50 to start screening. All right. There were 2 studies that came out in 2017, and I'm going to tell you that these studies, I'm seeing this backed up in my clinic anecdotally. These 2 studies told us the threat of colon cancer is moving to younger people. It's not just people past age 50. You're not automatically safe. They found that in this study, if you were born in 1990, you have 4 times the risk of rectal cancer compared to someone born in 1950, just based upon the year that you were born. That's it. So the risks are there. The threat is very real. I have diagnosed patients who are in their 40s and did not yet get a colonoscopy. I've diagnosed them with colon cancer. I have diagnosed people who, and by the way, I will not allow this to happen again to me ever again. Okay. I've had vegans refuse colonoscopy. They say, I'm vegan, I'm not going to get colon cancer. And then they die of colon cancer. I've had that happen to me more than once. All right. The people who are telling you not to do a colonoscopy, with full respect, are not a gastroenterologist. And I'm not telling you because it's going to benefit me personally. You don't need to come to me for your colonoscopy. I'm telling you because this is the truth. And this colonoscopy, it saves lives. So I'm turning 40 this year. I'm getting a colonoscopy. Now,
you're not going to do your own, are you?
No.
I'm just kidding.
No.
That would be amazing, though.
I will have my partner do it. And part of the reason that I'm doing a colonoscopy this year is because I am part of the medical practice where I can do that. Okay. So I don't have to ping my insurance plan to ask for permission to do it. I'm going to do it. But I honestly believe that having that first colonoscopy at the earliest age possible is the right approach, because once you have that first one, you know you are safe. And there is nothing worse to me than the person who's in their 40s, or I've even diagnosed a couple in their 30s and one patient in his 20s. There's nothing worse than the person who missed that window and then they have cancer and you couldn't stop it. So now, Cologuard is a great question, Chef AJ. Thank you for that. Cologuard is a great question. So what is the Cologuard? I'm going to explain this for the people at home who aren't familiar with this yet. The Cologuard is a stool test. It's non-invasive, so it does not require you to do a prep or to have sedation, okay? But it has its limitations. The problem with the Cologuard is, number one, it is not adequately sensitive. What that means is you could have colon cancer and it could actually miss it. You could have cancer and it could miss it. That's really bad. And the second part is that, what if you have a polyp? I told you before that if you have a polyp and I find it during a colonoscopy, I can painlessly remove it, and I've removed the threat. When they study the Cologuard, it is horrible at detecting polyps. What that means is that you could do a Cologuard this year, and there could be a very high risk polyp that it misses, and then next year you have cancer. And it's because the test is not designed to find the polyp. So I don't see them as equal in terms of their value. To me, the way that I see a Cologuard is this. If you, let's just pretend hypothetically, Chef AJ, you roll into my clinic in Charleston, South Carolina, and you say, you know what, Dr. B, I'll be honest with you. I'm not doing a colonoscopy. I'm just not. I just don't want to do it. And if you said that to me, I would say I would talk you into a Cologuard, because I would rather do a Cologuard than do nothing at all. All right. But if you gave me the choice, Dr. B, what do you think? Is a Cologuard as good as a colonoscopy? No. And I wouldn't allow you, like if you were one of my close friends and you asked me that question, I would talk you into the colonoscopy, because I think that it's the better test. So, and I want the plant-based community to know that if you talk to the plant-based gastroenterologists, talk to Dr. Angie. Ask her what she thinks about colon cancer screening. She's going to tell you the same thing that I'm telling you right now. So be careful with your source, and let's not be asking people so that they tell us what we want to hear. Let's ask the most credible, highest quality source. And if it's a gastroenterology question, I would hope that you would find the person who spent several years training as a gastroenterologist and does that for a living to be a better opinion than the person who has no training in that particular area.
And that goes for everything, really, what you just said. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, you make me want to have a colonoscopy. You're so passionate about this. You make me want to move to South Carolina just to get a doctor like you. This is, I want to respect your time. We've gone an hour, but I want to ask one kind of fun question, because we've been talking about a lot of serious topics, and there have been some questions on poop, hard, soft. And so I want to know what you think of the Bristol stool scale. How important is it? I'm usually a 4, sometimes a 5 or 6. So what do you think of poop, and what's it supposed to look like?
Okay, so I think about poop and I talk about it all day. So please don't be alarmed by the fact that I'm extremely comfortable with this question. All right. And I have this conversation a few times a day in my clinic. So for people at home who are wondering what is the Bristol stool scale, you can look it up on Google. It is quick and easy to find. And it basically is a scale from 1 to 7 of what your poop may look like. And it may be anything from constipation to diarrhea. But a type 4, as you said, Chef AJ, a type 4 is the ideal optimal stool. And it's sausage shaped, okay? It's soft but formed. And that's what we want our bowel movements to be. A high quality bowel movement to me is effortless. It is effortless. It all comes out. It is complete evacuation. And then there is a satisfying element to it. And I'll just be honest, there is a satisfying element to a healthy bowel movement, okay? Whereas an unhealthy bowel movement is one that is, there is either urgency where you are forced to go, you are not comfortable, you are trying to unload, or The flip side is you're straining, you're bearing down, you're trying to get it out. You don't feel like you got it all out. You had a little nugget or a turd and you still feel like you got to go 5 minutes later. Like those are all part of an experience that means that you are not adequately emptying. And so at the end of the day, our poop is, believe it or not, 60% of the weight of our bowel movement is our microbiome. Our poop is mostly bacteria. And so that is a reflection of the health of our microbiome. And that's why I actually think it's quite important to talk about this.
Well, I love it. And, we may not be able to be perfect human beings, but we can have a perfect poop.
Yes, we can.
Oh, you are just delightful. This is, by the way, guys, this is my first time meeting him. And if I act a little excited, it's because I've been waiting about 2 years and I cannot wait to interview with you again next month when your book Fiber Fueled comes out, whether you get it at Barnes and Noble or Amazon. We don't care where you get it. We just want you to get it and read my favorite chapter, which is chapter 5. It's a great book. And for those of you that are science nerds, there is so much science. I mean, there are probably as many notes as there are pages in the book. So if you have a doctor, this would be a great gift for your doctor as well. I really appreciate your time and thank all of you guys for watching as well. And I look forward to talking to you again, hopefully many times, Dr. Wilby, the Gut MD.
Chef AJ, such a pleasure hanging out with you. I'm glad that we were finally able to connect. I love your energy. I feel like you and I would be best friends if I were out in California hanging out. And I look forward to, continuing to connect with you. And then someday in real life, when the physical distancing is over, we can do a big high five and it'll be great.
Well, as luck would have it, the Plantrician Conference, if it doesn't get canceled like all the other conferences, will be in my hometown this year.
Yes, and I'm speaking there this year at the Plantrician Project, so I'll be there.
Yay. Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Wilby. And
My
thanks
pleasure.
all of you for watching. Take care.
All right.
Be safe, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.